How's that for some good bumper music, America? Little country jangle there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Got Freedom. It's the Got Freedom podcast. My name is Chad Hummel. Hopefully, many of you are tuning in here. This is my launch. We've been talking about this for some time on Kimberly's Revolution podcast that I do with Kimberly Ray and my partner Tom Morgan every Wednesday. And here we are. So as many of you know that are tuning in, and hopefully there'll be some new people out there listening in. But what we've done here is at my offices here high above Titus Avenue in Irondequoit is we created our own podcast studio. It's called the We the People Podcast Studio. And right now we have the Kimberly's Revolution podcast, as I mentioned, that goes off every Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And then Tom Morgan and Kimberly Ray also conduct the Revolution podcast on Mondays and Tuesdays. Hopefully many of you just tuned in and heard our good friend and fellow podcaster, Matt Fritz, Real Talk with Matt Fritz, that just went off before my show here. And as I mentioned, this is the inaugural show of the Got Freedom podcast. And I'll get into what's behind the name momentarily, and we'll discuss that a little bit. There's many other things on tap here tonight. I teased it a little bit earlier today. Hold on. I'm just going to acknowledge some of the shout outs I'm getting here. I'd be remiss not to acknowledge Chris Laper. It says mama here. That's because she's my mama. That's right. There's my mother, Chris Laper. Hi, Mom. I see some others on here. Laura, how you doing, Laura? My wonderful producer in studio tonight is Austin Scott. He's managing the comment section here. So, bear with me. This is my first show. I'm going to try to keep an eye on the comments. If Austin sees anything that's overly stunning, I'm sure he'll point it out to me.
You got it.
Thank you, Austin. Appreciate that. Thanks for all your hard work here tonight. Austin's pulling a little overtime here. This was kind of last second. Look at that. Listening from Boston. My cousin in Boston. She's going to get in her car later and probably drive to Rochester. That's right. Mr. Raspberry. How you guys all doing? So, as I was saying, Austin here, my producer, he's pulling a little extra duty here tonight. This was kind of a last second thing, doing this tonight, launching the Got Freedom podcast tonight. I teased it a little bit on Facebook earlier today with the idea of doing a Facebook Live like I've done in the past. And then my partner on Kimberly's Revolution, Kimberly Ray, promptly scolded me and basically said, what in the hell are you doing? We have a podcast studio. You spent a lot of money to build a podcast studio. Why are you giving Mark Zuckerberg any more money? Why don't you get your ass into the podcast studio? And here I am. And thankfully, Austin agreed to come in and help me get this thing launched. So again, hopefully I won't blow this up too bad here tonight in a bad way. And we'll roll this thing out. And then hopefully this will be a weekly thing. But some of the things that are on tap here for tonight, Dave Mortellaro, yes, you are a great man as well, Dave. And you know that you're a great loyal friend through all the troubles that I've been through here lately. I want to talk school districts, right? That's the topic. That's the hot topic right now. That plays right into the name Got Freedom. Oh, Got Freedom. Got Freedom. There it is. That's why we're here. All right. We'll talk about that in a minute. But it all starts locally. It all starts locally with the school districts. There's a lot going on locally with the school districts right now. Many of you are battling those fighting those battles on your own home fronts in your school districts, Penfield, Webster, Fairport, and so on and so forth. I have my own battle on my hands here in East Irondequoit, and we'll get you filled in on the details there in a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about the name of the podcast, Got Freedom. Again, there it is, Got Freedom. We're going to do a little camera work next week. I'll get here a little bit earlier. Get myself situated where you'll be able to see my shirt better. It's I don't know if it's irony or coincidence, but as you can see, my Got Freedom is a little bit faded there, right? And unfortunately, our freedoms are fading right now. They're fading right before your eyes. And those of you that have seen your freedoms fade over the past 18 months, many of you have been in tune with what's going on in the world, even longer than the last 18 months, even longer than the COVID lockdowns and what the politicians have done to us by taking advantage of COVID to further erode our freedoms. But a lot of you have been in tune with what's been going on. So it comes as no surprise that your freedoms are being eroded right before your eyes. And then unfortunately, but also fortunately, and I'll explain, many of you are starting to wake up. Unfortunately, you didn't wake up until now. And we're all in that same boat because it's all relative, right? If you woke up 2 years ago, somebody else had woken up 5 years ago. If you woke up 5 years ago, somebody else had woken up 10 years ago. If you woke up 10 minutes ago, somebody's going to wake up at the end of this show, hopefully. But the key is to wake up, right? And once you wake up, you'll know exactly what it is I'm talking about. It's not rhetoric. It's reality. It's what's actually happening in your day-to-day lives. You know it. I can go through dozens and dozens of examples, but if you have children in school right now in New York State, right, and in many other states, I imagine most of you are listening right now in New York State, but I know I have followers on Facebook that are in Massachusetts, that are in Florida, that are in South Carolina, that are in Ohio. You're listening now, I hope. And, you all have your own battles. But right here in Monroe County, in Rochester, New York, is one of the biggest battles in the country for our children's freedom, where our children are being forced to wear masks in 90-degree heat, and where our politicians are playing daily political games with the masks and with vaccinations, and using the masks as a tool to get to a forced vaccination, holding the mask out in front of parents and children as a carrot to induce them to take the vaccine. It's a real thing. In a little bit, we'll play a clip from Governor Andrew Cuomo, where, don't take my word for it, just listen to his very words. And we'll get to that in a few moments. Let me just recap on the Got Freedom. So on the back of my shirt here, there's a message. And look, that's why Mr. Austin Scott here, my producer, is so incredible, because he was reading my mind, and up comes the back of my t-shirt. So this is a picture that my wife took of the back of my t-shirt here. And you can read, of course, but let me read this out loud. Government has an inborn tendency to grow, and left to itself, it will grow beyond the control of the people. Only constant complaint by the people will inhibit its growth. And then I don't know if you can see the bottom there, but that's a quote from, there we go, President Ronald Reagan. Government has an inborn tendency to grow. And we know that. We know that as a fact. Who in their lifetime has not seen the government grow? The federal government, the local government, your school district. It continues to grow in numbers, in dollars, and most importantly, in the power that they seek to exercise over your individual liberties every single day. And if we don't constantly complain and take action, we know that we will not inhibit its growth. And the government isn't supposed to grow in dollars and authority over us. Our federal government, for example, is supposed to be a weak government, so to speak. We want it, of course, to be strong from the standpoint of doing its job, like defending our borders. But as far as exercising powers over our daily individual liberties, our federal government is supposed to stand far, far in the background. Local control, local individual control, local individual power and authority, right? Right now, I'm going to give a couple of shout outs here to some of the people that I feel strongly about bringing me to this point to be able to do something like this, to get on a podcast here and have the audience that I have to speak. And when I talk about local control, the individual that comes to my mind is Shannon Joy. Shannon Joy hosts a radio program every night at 9 p.m. on Wham 1180. And she preaches local. She preaches local control. She preaches individual liberty. And she's a strong, strong advocate for exactly what it says on the back of my shirt. And that is that we need to be loud and we need to be strong and we need to do it locally, because most of the decisions that get exercised over our lives occur by local leaders, mostly at our school boards right now, in our local school districts. So that's that thing. Now, let's talk about a nice little segue at the federal level. And there's an individual by the name of Rand Paul. Many of you, know who Rand Paul is. He's a U.S. senator out of Kentucky. Here's a statement that showed up, a meme that showed up on Facebook today. If you could just scroll down there a little bit. I can't see the top of it, Austin. What's that? Okay, yeah. So we should never forget the Constitution wasn't written to restrain citizens' behavior. It was written to restrain the government's behavior. And that sounds cute, right? And it sounds like it's a cliche, but what could be more true than that statement? And that's the part that either the people that are in power in our government, again, either at the federal level or the local level, the people that are in power, they either don't understand that to be true, which it is. I mean, if anyone wants to tell me that that's not a true statement, feel free to chime in and we can discuss it. But the government, they either don't understand that statement or they're purposely ignoring it, right? Are they purposely ignoring it? Could you just throw that up one more time for me, Austin? So again, we should never forget the Constitution wasn't written to restrain our behavior. So there aren't laws and rules and principles that came out of our Declaration of Independence and that came out of our United States Constitution and then has been translated down into our individual state constitutions and into our local laws and rules. Those weren't written. Those laws, those principles, those constitutions were not written to restrain our behavior. They were written to restrain a strong federal government from exercising tyranny over us as individuals, right? We the people. We're in the We the People podcast studio. We the people grant the authority to the government, whether it be at the local level or the federal level. We grant the government the authority to govern over us at our request, at our direction, not the other way around. And the only reason why we have to talk about these things that are quite frankly written in stone, right? They're etched in stone in the Constitution, which has been around for well over a couple centuries. The only reason why we even have to have this conversation now as grown adults is because we don't teach this anymore. We don't teach this anymore in our schools. We teach critical race theory. We teach our children social agendas and social policies. I'll go off on a quick tangent. The word on the street today is that Northwood Elementary School, and forgive me, I think that's in the Hilton School District, perhaps Greece, but the school district apparently decided to make either all or most of their bathrooms gender neutral, because apparently it's not okay anymore for boys, biological boys, right? Hashtag follow the science, to use the boys' room. And for biological girls, hashtag science girls, to use the little girls' room. That's not okay. We have to have gender neutral bathrooms. Who made that decision? Did the parents of Hilton, and again, forgive me if it's Greece, but you get the point. Did the parents of that school district make that choice? I highly doubt it. Or did 7 or 5 or 9 board members in that district with some who knows what agenda and where they got it from agenda, did they pass that? And what was the reason that they passed it? Because some people would argue on the other side, well, so what? For example, if it's a single-use bathroom, so what? And by single use, and I had to really think that through, because, when you have to start thinking about, how to use a bathroom when you're almost 47 years old, like I am, then maybe that's the problem, right? Maybe it truly is a fundamental problem that's not on you and me, but it's on them when it's causing people that have, lived their lives this far. We have to stop and think, well, what in the hell is a single-use bathroom, and why does that matter? And that's the point. Why does it matter, right? Well, so the theory goes something like this: it's only a single-use bathroom, so it's not like the boys and the girls will be in there together, right? Because a boy goes in and a boy comes out, and a girl goes in and a girl comes out, and so people say, so what's the problem? What's the issue? Well, how about what the hell was the issue with the bathroom in the first place? How about if you're going to make a change to society, to culture, to a norm, if you're going to make a change, if 5 individuals or 7 individuals or 9 individuals on a board of education are going to make a change to a 200, a 300, 1,000-year-old societal norm, I don't know. Was there indoor plumbing around 1,000 years ago? I might be a little off there, Austin.
Yeah, I don't think quite that long ago.
Yeah. All right. Well, just delete that part of the podcast out for me.
Oh, yeah, and I'll get right on that.
All right. Appreciate that. But I think you all get the point. If there's been a societal norm for so long and it's not hurting anybody, right? We're not talking about slavery here. That hurt people. That was a societal norm that society as a whole decided to change and fight a war over. I don't think the school board in Hilton fought a war last night. I think what they did was they just crammed their disgusting, vile, perverted agenda down the throats of their students and their parents. That's right, the students, the little boys and girls, your little sons and daughters. Your 7-year-old daughter went to school today without you knowing and tried to use the little girl's room that she's used for 2 years, for 3 years, for 4 years, and saw a boy coming out. Why? You tell me first what the point of that is, and then that'll shift the burden. That'll shift the burden over to people like me, us bigots, us racists, us people that want boys to use the boys' room and girls to use the girls' room. Then that'll shift the burden over to us, and then we can explain why that's wrong. But you first explain why you needed to change that societal norm. And I know the answer. Right? I already know the answer. You didn't need to change it. There's no reason. Again, you did it because you're perverts. That's why you did it. Right? I believe this might even be the same school district that has many parents filing notices of claims right now because their children were being molested, allegedly, by a principal of the school. And again, if I'm mixing and matching school districts and schools, forgive me. But does it really matter at this point? Unfortunately, it appears that we're finding out through COVID, because now we're awake, right? Let's go back to that topic. We've woken up. Many parents who were asleep, and not necessarily in a negative way, but maybe they just trusted the process. They trusted their school boards. They trusted the system of putting their children on the bus and sending them off to school and having them be educated in math and science and history and English and a little bit of physical education, maybe some home ec. And instead, what we find out is the children are getting molested, and little girls are using the little boys' room, and little boys are using the little girls' room, and vice versa. Perverts. Am I still off on my tangent? I don't even remember. Austin, you're going to have to help me out here. I'm off on a tangent. So let's stick with the perverts at school here for a little bit. So I brought in a picture here. I brought in a picture of my son's team photograph. So there it is. There's the East Ridge Lancers varsity baseball team. And unfortunately, their season ended yesterday with a first-round sectional loss to West Irondequoit. But I have to give a plug to my son. My son broke up a no-hitter in the 3rd inning. He had 2 hits. He led the team in hits. He had a couple putouts out in left field. So he represented himself very well in his final high school baseball game. Unfortunately, it was a loss to West Irondequoit. But obviously, you see where I'm going with this, right? So there's a collection of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's a collection of about 15 student athletes and 2 coaches, and they're obviously indoors, and they all have masks on as they all stand shoulder to shoulder. Now, I'm just going to go one by one and go through all the things that are wrong with this photograph. And I'll start with the obvious. The obvious is it's perverted. Just look at it. This is the picture that my son will have for the rest of his life. This will be the picture that someday he'll have on his mantle, and he'll have to show his children, and his children will say, what in the hell was wrong with you people? What the hell was going on? Was everybody dying around you? Everybody must have been dying around you. And my son will say, no, just about 0.02%. And out of that 0.02%, only about 0.0004% was anyone under the age of 50. And then his son will say, well, geez, Dad, it looks like everybody's under 50 in that picture. So basically, there was no chance that any of you could have caught COVID and died or even gotten overly sick, right? Is that correct, Dad? And my son will say, absolutely, son. That's the facts. That's the hashtag science. And his son will say, well, then why the hell did you have all those masks on and ruin your picture? And my son will say, perverts, son, because they were all perverts. They were all sick, tyrannical perverts. And none of them had any courage. Not the coaches, not the teachers, not the principals, not the administrators, not the Board of Education. None of them had the balls to stand up to the next person that we'll talk about in a few moments. But please leave that picture up for a minute. None of them had the balls to stand up to King Andrew in Albany. Nope. They all bent over and took it. They all said for 18 months, there's nothing we can do. When the parents called, when the students asked, when the students cried and begged, can we take these masks off now? Can we come back to school fully? Can we come in and see our friends? It's our senior year. Can we have a ball? Can we have a normal prom? Can we not be isolated anymore? And all they were told is, nope, sorry, there's nothing we can do. Our hands are tied. There's nothing we can do. You got to go talk to the governor. But then the governor said back in December, the schools are safe. The schools are safe. Open up. Make the decision at the local level. So then everyone went back to the local level and said, guess what? Great news. You told us that your hands were tied and only the governor could make the choice. The governor says, go for it. It's your choice. Nope, we can't open. Well, why not? You said it was the governor's. You said it was up to the governor. The governor said it was okay. Well, no, we can't. Why? Because we can't. Cowards. Perverts. So the obvious point there again is they're all masked up, right? But then let's break it down further. This is going to get, a little mundane here. We'll get into the details, but look at how close they all are. Right? COVID's real. It spreads. People have gotten sick. Well, how does it spread and how do people get sick from a hashtag science standpoint? Well, you know how that happens? From close personal contact, which has been rule number 1 since the day COVID landed in the United States after it traveled out of the Wuhan lab. The Chinese virus came over here after it was apparently manufactured in China, and now it's here, and now my video is going to get pulled by YouTube. So nonetheless, it gets to the United States, and all of the powers to be in the United States say social distance. Social distance. Maintain social distance. What's that mean? Stay 6 feet apart. Stay 6 feet apart. Stay 6 feet apart. Put stickers up. Put signs up everywhere. Tell everyone to spread apart. Go to Dunkin' Donuts. Stand on the circles. Don't go anywhere near each other. But if you cannot maintain social distance, in the limited circumstance where you cannot maintain social distance, make sure you wear a mask. So what do our school districts do? They don't maintain social distance. They get shoulder to shoulder in a picture in close personal contact, and they violate the rules, but they put the masks on. Why? Because it's all theater. It's all theater. It's all control, and it's all theater. So they tell us we have to follow the rules. We have to listen to them because they know better. And then they violate the rules that they foist upon us. They violate the rules that they foist upon us with impunity. And they don't care. because they're in control and they're wielding the power. So that's that. So let's get rid of that stupid picture, unfortunately. Let's talk Cuomo. We're gonna let Cuomo take over the next 2 minutes. We're gonna run through this Cuomo clip and then we'll break it down after we listen.
For schools, they should now be vaccinating 12 to 17-year-olds. They are in the school. They're there now. You have them in one place. They're a captive audience, so to speak. You have a nurse in the school, or you have a local government that can send the vaccination team to the school. We're closing vaccination sites. Redeploy them to the school. Get them vaccinated now. Parental permission slip, and then vaccinate the child. Once summer vacation happens, they're gone. They go home, they're in the neighborhood, they go on vacation, they go to camp, who knows where they go. But you have them right now in the building. And you want to start the new school year in September with a clean slate, get them vaccinated now. It makes no sense. Connecticut did something called the Ferris Bueller Day Off. Who remembers Ferris Bueller Day Off? Well, you are a non-participatory. Do you remember, Zach?
Very clearly.
You remind me of Ferris Bueller, by the way. I'm saying. But Connecticut did a Ferris Bueller Day Off. If you get vaccinated, you get the rest of the day off. Get creative. But get those 12 to 17-year-olds vaccinated now. It will make reopening the schools much safer and much easier. And I think every school should be doing that right now. If they don't have a nurse, and if the local health department can't do it, the state will do it. But get it done now. It's a golden opportunity. And the world is open for the vaccinated. For the vaccinated.
Shocking. Did you guys listen to that? It's absolutely shocking. Now let's go back to the beginning, and then I want to break that down a little bit.
For schools, they should now be vaccinating 12 to 17-year-olds.
Stop there. Let's start with that. They. So you got to go every word, right? You really do. Every word matters, right? Isn't that what they always tell us? Isn't that what the liberal progressives always tell us? Every word matters. So let's make every word matter. Who's they? They. The 12 to 17-year-olds? Well, who are 12 to 17-year-olds? Why stop at 17? What happens at 18? Anyone have any guesses? What happens at 18? Oh, I don't know. Maybe you're an adult. Maybe you're old enough to go to the military. Are you old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes anymore at 18?
I think so.
Yeah, I think 18, right? I know you can't drink till you're 21, and then you drink a lot more than you did when you're 18. But so they are your children. Those are your children. Who in the hell is Andrew Cuomo or any government official to tell you what to do with your own children? Who is he? Is he a dictator? The answer is yes or no. If he's a dictator, if the answer is yes, well, I guess if you agree with having a dictator, then you're telling us who you are and where you stand. More power to you. But if the answer is no, if the answer he is not a dictator, well, then he should stand the F down. He's got nothing to say. It's not his call. It's not his role. It's not his job. Why is he even interested? I mean, I have some theories as to why he's interested. Some of them bring a lot of dollar signs to mind. Is that why he's interested? Is it because he has a connection with Pfizer? Is it because that Pfizer agreed to spend tens of millions of dollars in infrastructure in New York State and perhaps donate to his campaign? Is that why he is so interested? See, simple questions should lead to simple answers. But nobody can have that conversation in the government. Because, as the back of my shirt says, if you complain, if you question, they shut you down. They censor you. They ban you. They might even have you arrested. They might even come to your school, your children's school, and throw the cuffs on you and take you away if they don't like what you have to say. Some of you know that actually happened, right? So, what interest does Andrew Cuomo have in trying to exercise authority over your children? Let me know if you have any answers to that. All right, let's go on. Please.
They are in the school. They're there now. You have them in one place. They're a captive audience.
Stop there. You. So we now know who the they is. It's your children. Now he says you have them in one place as a captive audience. Who's the you? The you is the schools, the boards of education, the administrators, the principals, the same ones that push critical race theory on your children, the same ones that allegedly molest your children, the same ones that change the bathrooms to gender neutral so little Mary can go in the bathroom with Johnny and vice versa. The you is those perverts. Are they all perverts? Of course not. Are there good teachers? Of course there are. My wife is one. My wife has been a special educator for well over a decade. But we have a system that's bigger than any one individual right now, which is the opposite of what it's supposed to be. In a constitutional republic where we are allegedly free and where we allegedly administer to the government how we want to be governed, the individual bodies are supposed to be in charge, not a system, not a collective system that overrides the individual will. So even the good teachers, so to speak, and even the good administrators, so to speak, are getting swallowed by a system, by corrupt individuals like Andrew Cuomo, who wield their authority so strongly over everybody, withholding funding, threatening to withhold funding if they don't follow his every whim. So the you that he is speaking to is effectively a jail, a camp. Is that what the schools are? Are they a captive audience, our children? Are they pigs in a pen to Andrew Cuomo? Are they sheep being watched by a wolf? Tell me the answer is no. Prove to me that that's not the answer. Prove to me, because this is him speaking. These are his words. Prove to me that his words don't matter. Prove to me that he doesn't mean what he says when he says they, your children, should be vaccinated. He's not a doctor. And prove to me that he doesn't mean that while you have them locked up in the schools, that that's not where we should go after them and make sure that they get vaccinated outside the control of you, the parents. Prove to me that that's not the case. Because he's saying it. And if he's saying it, I believe him. I believe you, King Andy. I believe that you want my children penned up like sheep at the school district with lots of carrots hanging over our heads, such as full reopening, such as unmasking, such as you can go back and join band again and try to play a flute and a clarinet without a mask over your face. And you can hang out in the parking lot and do marching band in 90-degree heat on asphalt without masks on, and that you can play a baseball game without a mask on. I believe that you're hanging all of those carrots in front of us so that we'll comply with your wishes. And I believe that you want the teachers and the administrators to do exactly what you're saying that you want them to do. and that is to vaccinate the kids while they're there in school, while they're outside the control of the parents who would otherwise not want them vaccinated. Let's go on.
You have a nurse in the school, or you have a local government that can send the vaccination team
Hold
to
it there.
the school. We're closing.
Holy cow. You have a nurse. Okay, so at least he's acknowledging some sort of medical staff that might be involved in the administration of medicine to our children against their will, against the parents and the family's will. And then did he say that we have vaccination teams? What is a vaccination team? What is that, Andrew? I mean, I have a million guesses, a million theories. I don't want to put words in your mouth. But you said it, not me. What in the hell is a vaccination team? Is that like some sort of gulag? Is that a camp that's controlled by these individuals who are going to administer, medicine to our children? Unwanted medicine to our children? Something that's not even approved by the FDA? That's the truth, by the way. YouTube. What in the hell is he talking about? Let's go on.
Vaccination sites, redeploy them to the school.
Redeploy.
Get them.
He wants to, and then we'll stop here because you've heard enough. Redeploy. He's closing one camp of this vaccination protocol that he's trying to employ, and he wants to redeploy these people over to a more vulnerable population of individuals, your children. This is just absurd. This is absurd. I mean, it almost just goes without saying, doesn't it, that it's absurd? I mean, if you can listen, if your ears work, it's unreal. And if you don't fight back, and if you're not awake yet, you don't wake up, I don't ever want to tell you that it's going to be too late. And I don't ever want to look you in the eye and say, you know what, I don't have any sympathy for you because you didn't wake up. Because again, like I said earlier, it's all relative. My eyes weren't awake to a lot of these things I'm talking about right now, even 18 months ago. I mean, there was many things that I was awake about and fighting for. I've always been kind of loud and out there on political issues. But, as I talked about in some other venues recently on social media, find your fight. Find the one thing it is that you can go after and fight it. Because if you don't, what are you going to tell your children? What are you going to tell your children? What is my son, like we said earlier, what is my son going to tell his children about that team photo where they're all wearing masks? And oh, by the way, his individual photo, he didn't have a mask on. So apparently COVID went away once they stopped with the team picture and they were still indoors. So indoors, they were able to take their masks off like they're supposedly not able to do, but to take a picture, they were able to do. So now we know that when you sit down in a restaurant, there's no COVID. When you stand up and eat something, there's no COVID. When you take your mask off for a picture inside of a school where you're not supposed to take your mask off at all, there's no COVID. Does anyone know how this works? Let me know if you figure this out. It's been 18 months. I still haven't figured out the rules. Okay. What time is it? How are we doing here? Yeah, it's 9:25. It's early. Is everyone still awake? This late Tuesday night. So one of the things I got to remember to do is stop, take a breath every once in a while, right? I don't have to just talk for an hour straight. Do I, Austin? I don't have any sponsors yet, so I can't do a sponsor break. So I got some comments coming in. We got people meowing on here. That's my lifelong buddy. I talked about Jason on my podcast earlier today on the Revolution, Kimberly's Revolution. One of the questions came up was, who's your best friend? I guess it's like, what is it, Best Friends Day or something, Austin?
Yeah, I think so.
Is that what we learned here earlier?
Yeah.
So it's Best Friends Day. So I was asked, who are my best friends? And and I threw out my wife. I threw out my good buddy Dave Dobson that I grew up with, and then of course I threw out my my lifelong buddy Jason Madigan, my best man in my wedding. So thanks for popping on there, Jay. Yeah, so let me just kind of recap. This is most of you probably know who I am, but let me say, my name is Chad Hummel. This is my inaugural podcast here, the Got Freedom podcast, right? This is going to be hopefully a weekly occurrence, most likely on Tuesdays. But as we work out the kinks here, programming and otherwise, we'll keep you tuned. But it's the Got Freedom podcast, and the name is designed to get you thinking, right? It's to get you thinking whether you actually do have freedom or not. And if you have to stop and think about every move you're making, which most of you recognize now in the past 18 months that you've had to do that. Again, if you have children in school, if you go grocery shopping, if you try to go to a baseball game, if you try to go to church, if you try to celebrate Mother's Day, if you tried to celebrate the 4th of July last year, you know that you don't have freedom right now. You know that you have to read a sign. You have to check the local news. You have to check King Andrew's daily press briefing to find out what your freedoms are. What are you free to do? What are you really free to do in America in 2021? What's today, June 8th?
Yep.
What are you free to do on Tuesday, June 8th at 9:28 p.m. in America 2021 that you don't have to check the rule book on? Ask yourself that. And if you can even think of 5 or 10 things that you have to check the rule book on, you have less freedom than you should. A wise attorney, Rich Koya, that I worked for 9 years, he used to have this statement to me. So I lived in Irondequoit. Our law office for the first several years was out in Gates on Chile Avenue. So I had about a 20-minute ride with no traffic, sometimes an hour in the winter with traffic, ride into work every day. And he used to say to me, "You think you're free?" "Oh, yeah." I was a young kid out of law school. "Oh, yeah, I'm free. Are you kidding me? I know the law. We have a constitution, blah, blah, blah." And he would stop me and say, "Do you know how many rules that you broke just in your 20-minute ride to work this morning? Do you know how many laws you probably broke since you woke up 2 hours ago?" And he got me thinking. It's like, yeah, you're right. Maybe I went a little too fast on the expressway. Maybe I forgot to put my seatbelt on, or maybe I purposely didn't put my seatbelt on. Maybe you rolled through a stop sign. Maybe you went around the red lights of a school bus or the yellow lights of a school bus and they turned red as you were passing it. Maybe you put the wrong gasoline in your gas tank. Environmental laws. There's just so many laws. There's so many regulations. There's so many statutes. There's so much guidance. There's so many people and organizations, unelected bureaucrats that are daily going to work, spending 40, 50, 60 hours a week, writing policies and regulations that become de facto laws over your life. Unelected bureaucrats. You know what I mean by that, right? I mean, you vote for your congressman and you vote for your senator and you vote for your school board member, right? That's a sore subject, isn't it? And if they don't do what you've elected them to do, you can vote them out. But then what happens? They get into power and then they appoint boards and they appoint policymakers and administrators and regulators. And there's lobbyists. And then they pass all of this off the books, so to speak, type of policies and regulations. The New York State Department of Health, the Environmental Protection Agency, arm of the federal government, just as two very, very, very large examples of non-lawmaking bodies who wield a tremendous amount of power and authority over your life. And if you don't think that the New York State Department of Health is controlling your life right now, you got another thing coming. And I'll touch base on that a little bit right now. Getting into my situation with the school district. Let me grab a swig of water here. So again, thanks for joining me here on the Got Freedom podcast, my inaugural podcast here at the We the People podcast studios, where I host a podcast on Wednesdays called Kimberly's Revolution. That's with Kimberly Ray, formerly of the Kimberly and Beck Show. Those of you that don't know the story there, tune in on Wednesdays. We talk about it all the time, but we have a phenomenal podcast on Wednesdays. Kimberly's absolutely phenomenal, true professional behind the microphone, studies her material, super prepared, and just blows us all away every Wednesday with her talent. And my partner, Tom Morgan. So the three of us, we get together every Wednesday. We kick out the Kimberly's Revolution podcast. And then on Mondays and Tuesdays, my partner, Tom Morgan, and Kimberly also continue the fun there. So here we are. And, I'll just quickly touch base on, many of you know my situation. I was arrested on campus, on the East Irondequoit School campus, at my son's varsity baseball game on May 1st, because I did not have a mask on, and they asked me to leave, and I told them I would not, because I have a constitutional right to be on my school district's property when my children are at an athletic event, and they called the police and had me literally handcuffed and dragged off campus and taken to the police station, and then they banned me. Then they followed it up by issuing a civil no trespass order, and they banned me from coming on campus. And I fought that initially. I'm going to court on the criminal case, and I'm in a battle right now in state Supreme Court on the civil side. And initially, I had obtained what's called a temporary restraining order, a TRO, that bars the school district from enforcing its ban against me. And the legal basis for that temporary restraining order is that I argued to the court that the ban on me is considered arbitrary and capricious under the law. There's a legal mechanism where you argue that a ruling by an administrative body, as I just explained, our school districts are an administrative body, when they do something that's considered arbitrary and capricious, and in layman's terms, meaning that it's not rational, it's illogical and not rational. And the court initially agreed by by granting me the TRO, the temporary restraining order. That was a couple weeks ago. So luckily, fortunately, thanks to Justice Dan Doyle in state Supreme Court, I was able to attend about 20 different athletic events over the past 2.5, 3 weeks. My son's final varsity baseball games and two of my daughter's high school softball games. I was able to attend those home games thanks to the court order of Justice Doyle. But the school district, of course, isn't going to back down. They're fighting. They're mad as hell. They're mad as hell at Justice Doyle for allowing me back on campus because they feel like they have the authority to control you. And this is where I want to focus. And honestly, I really like to get into the details. I love to talk specifics, but sometimes I know it gets boring. And quite honestly, I just don't have all night, and you don't have all night either. So, forgive me. You're just going to have to trust me on the details, right? I've explained them many, many times in many different social media venues. So hopefully you've heard the specifics. But I want to kind of talk generically right now on principles and fundamentals about what's going on. And so I'm going to try to put it like this. What the school district, and I had court today, okay? So, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is born out of what I heard today. And I already knew it, but it's still quite shocking when you hear it argued in an actual court of law. And this is coming from somebody I've been a litigator for 18 years, okay? I've done trial work, criminal trials, civil trials. I've done it all in the courtroom. I've done all the litigation. I've done one of everything. Another wise old saying from Mr. Koya, the attorney that I worked for. I've done one of everything. I really have. And it's still shocking nonetheless to hear the school district argue in court through their lawyers that I'm paying for. And if you're in East Irondequoit, and quite frankly, if you're in Monroe County or in New York State, you're paying for them as well. You're paying for the lawyers to come in and argue against you, right? And their arguments are quite chilling. And their arguments are an extension of what the school district thinks about you as a parent. And make no mistake, in this one instance, it's about me. But I'm telling you, what they argued against me today, it's about you too. Because if they feel like this about me, they feel like this about you too. You just haven't jumped into their crosshairs yet. Okay? And their position is effectively that they own you. That's their property. And you're beholden to them. But that's not what the law says. The law says you have a constitutional right under the First and 14th Amendment. You have a constitutional right to be on your school property, right? And you don't need to know that you have that constitutional right because you just understand that. You're a layperson and you understand that. It just makes sense. It's logical. It's common sense, right? But no, that's not what they think. They're angry. They're mad. They're angry at Judge Doyle for allowing me back on campus. Because in the attorney's words, when we went to court the first time, Your Honor, you can't do that. You can't allow him back on campus. I'm going to have to call up my client, meaning the superintendent. I'm going to have to call my client and tell them that they're not allowed to control their own property. And I'm going to have an angry client. Those were his words. I'm going to have an angry client. And the judge says, okay, you're going to have an angry client. Why does the superintendent, one person who's paid by us, the people, we the people, your superintendent works for you, and you don't commit a crime, and you're not molesting children, and you're not carrying a weapon on campus, you just went there outdoors and you didn't wear a mask on, according to the actual current science and the actual current state regulations and policies. But because the school districts always have to one-up the law, they always have to wield their power and their authority and create additional regulations, they bury a regulation in their school board policy that says masks are required everywhere at all times without regard to anything but their whims. And then they try to use that to bury everybody. But, and I do have to get into the details a little bit so you understand the context, I've provided dozens and dozens and dozens of photographs to the court to prove that they're not enforcing the mask policy against everybody. My wife was at one of my child's games, and she stood right next to the athletic director, and she didn't have a mask on. And neither did about a dozen other people on campus at the game that day. And he never said a word to them. Why? Because he was only there to make sure that I wasn't there. That's why the athletic director was there that day. And I have that as a known fact now through the court process. He was there to make sure I wasn't there. Why? Because I speak out. Why? Because I'm against critical race theory. Why? Because I've been effective in getting books pulled from the middle school, disgusting, vile, race-baiting books from the middle school that our school board in East Irondequoit had approved. And then only because I got loud, they pulled the books and issued a mea culpa. And I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. We re-reviewed the book. Oh, you re-reviewed it. That's great. Well, who the hell reviewed it in the first place? But anyway, I digress. That's right. The system's corrupt, Cheryl. It really is. These individuals are corrupt. They really are. They're power-hungry, corrupt individuals. Maybe they meant well when they started. I don't know. Maybe they mean well now, and they just don't know how to comport themselves. I don't know. But what I do know is how they are comporting themselves. And they're comporting themselves like tyrants, like petty tyrants. That's how they're comporting themselves. So, where do we go from here? You need to get loud. You need to fight back. And you are. You are. I heard the rumblings on text message threads and on social media posts of stuff going down in various school boards tonight. I think in Webster and Penfield. I'm not sure if both of those boards met tonight, but I saw that there was some action going on. And this is great. This is great news because these tyrants are getting louder and you're waking up and now you're getting louder. And you have to continue to get loud. You have to continue to push back. They're bringing the police in. They're using the police as an arm of their own enforcement. Isn't that so incredibly hypocritical and comical? These are the same individuals that want to defund the police for the most part. These are the same individuals that love to wave their BLM flags around. They think authority is so bad, they fashion themselves as these liberals that believe in freedoms, right? The freedom of choice, as they want to mandate vaccinations. My body, my choice. As Andrew Cuomo says, bring them in. We have a captive audience. Let's get them vaccinated now before their parents figure it out, right? These are the people of liberty and freedom, these liberals. Horse shit. They're the party of tyranny and control. They put their boot on your neck at every turn. They try to enslave you on welfare and government handouts from the day you are born so that you are beholden to them. They try to take away your drive to work, your need to work. You know, how many people have heard in their own families, in their own friendship circles? I guarantee that you've all heard somebody tell you word of mouth, right from the horse's mouth is what I'm trying to say. You've heard it from your friends and relatives who are not working right now because they're making more on unemployment. That's the government exercising their control over you. That's the government putting its boot on your neck, telling you, don't work, you can rely upon us. You need to fight back. We need to take back control of our children, of our schools, of our local governments, and we need to filter it upwards. It's not a top-down approach, it's a bottom-up approach. Little water break here. Check the clock. How we doing? It's 9:43. So we'll try to wrap this up. We're getting close to an hour here. I don't want to keep you guys too much longer. I really appreciate everyone being here, everyone listening. I saw a comment come up a few moments ago about me being targeted, and I've argued that in my case. And the school district, little technical difficulty there. I just got to remember to push the power button on my camera once in a while to keep the juice flowing. But the school district is arguing, at least in writing, that I'm not being targeted. And then it was absolutely, I laughed, but it was comical, but it was also chilling to hear the school district lawyer today, as he was trying to argue that I wasn't being targeted, actually basically claimed that I was being targeted. It was shocking the way it came out. I don't know if he meant to do it that way, or maybe, sometimes the truth just comes out. But basically, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but basically what the school district lawyer argued to Judge Doyle today was that Mr. Hummel's not being targeted. He's not similarly. Oh God, how do you say that word? Similarly?
Similarly.
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of L's.
Yeah. He argued that I wasn't similarly situated to everyone else in the district. And I was like, what? What do you mean I'm not similarly situated? I'm a parent just like everyone else. Why should I be treated any differently? And his response was, and you're honestly, you're not going to believe this, but you go find the transcript if you don't believe me. When I get the transcript, I'll read it to you. His argument was, well, he spoke out. He was communicating with the district. He was telling the district that he didn't agree with their policy. He's been a vocal advocate against COVID precautions. Did you hear that? He admitted I was being targeted. And I looked at Judge Doyle for his reaction, and honestly, sometimes you can completely misread a judge's reaction, right? In 18 years, you've thought you read the judge right and you read him wrong, and you thought you read him wrong and you read him right, and vice versa, in every which way possible. It's a coin toss. But today, I didn't see the reaction I was hoping to see when, as the lawyer prefaced his argument with Mr. Hummel's not being targeted, and then he went on to basically say I was being targeted because I spoke out. So what I want you to know as we wrap this up, when it comes to how tyrannical your school district will get if you don't check them now, is if you have the courage, and that's a big if, and I don't mean that negatively to those of you that don't. I really don't. I understand why you might not have the courage, and I understand why, if you think you have the courage, you might choose not to exercise it. I get that. Some of you aren't lawyers, and it's not free to hire a lawyer and do what I'm doing. Some of you have jobs where you could potentially lose your livelihood if you do what I've done. I get that. But if you don't find a way to check your school district right now, what I just heard today in a court of law on the record from an attorney who was speaking for a Monroe County school district, and probably perhaps the second largest, third if you count the city, it probably goes city, Greece, and Irondequoit's right up there. East Irondequoit. If you speak out, if you challenge them, as the attorney said, they are going to sting you. If you swat at them, they're the bee. They're the bee's nest. If you swat at them, they're going to sting you. They are going to have you arrested and then stand by it. They are going to ban you from your children's athletic events. They are going to ban you from your children's graduation ceremonies and then force you to get a court order to go back and then write you a letter saying you're allowed to come back after the judge already granted me the order to go back. They are going to sting you if you speak out. Please know that. You are going to have to get stung. You're going to have to lick your wound and then keep fighting. And that's the truth. Because I don't know if you got freedom anymore. I just don't know if you do. It's time to take it back. It's time to take it back. All right, Austin, what do you say?
Here we go.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. Go America.